Hi there, my name's Jo and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in the UK. Thank you for joining me today for my Monday mashup. This session really is to show you the versatility of some of our beautiful products and how they can all coordinate together and work really well together to give you sort of an overall effect. And in doing that, I've also incorporated a couple of little techniques just to show you something a little bit different that you may not have used before. I will show you how to create this sort of sunburst effect on this circle, and also how to colour your leaves here. Now this is a similar technique to what you may know as the baby wipe technique. It is very slightly different. It's a lot cleaner and it's probably a lot quicker as well, but it's an alternative that you might want to consider doing. So we're going to start off with our card. So our card is a standard C6 card from the UK sizes, which is 21 across by 14.85 deep. And that is scored at 10.5 centimetres to give us our base card. And then have a layer of early espresso, and this measures 13.85 by 9.5 centimetres. And then finally we have a piece of very vanilla, and this measures 13.35 by 9 centimetres. So that's our three pieces that we're going to need to make this. We're also going to need a scrap of very vanilla card, which I have then punched a circle from. You can see this is the original one that I used to make my sample. So this is 2¼ inch circle, so that I've just used a punch to do that. But you could use a die, you could use anything really, or you could use any shape. It doesn't have to be a circle, but I particularly wanted a circle for this design. Okay, we're going to be using two stamp sets. We're going to be using Nature's Beauty, which is a really beautiful stamp. I really do love this stamp, but we're just going to be using this little piece here. So you'll see that on my original card here. You can see I've just used them at this point here. Okay, so we're going to be using that. And then we're also going to be using the greeting from Beautiful Autumn, this thank you. But I'm not actually using any of the stamps. So this is to show you how versatile it can be to buy other products. Now, in the Gilded Autumn suite, they come with 3 punches. Now these are 2 leaves and an acorn, so these are the autumn punch pack. I'm going to be using these two here today, but as I say, it just goes to show you how sometimes you don't need to buy everything in a suite. Sometimes you can just use parts of it. So I'm going to put those to one side. I can just see I've put a little mark on this. I'm going to turn over and work on the other side. We don't waste it. So I'm just going to run my bone folder down those edges. I've got a new blade in my trimmer, and when it's new it tends to give you a slightly raised edge on it, so that's just to get rid of those. Okay, so we're going to start off with our circle, which I'm going to place onto my very vanilla panel, and we're going to be using 2 inks. We're going to be using Bumblebee and Pumpkin Pie. Now I've chosen these 2 colours because they're quite close tonally, but it will give me a little bit more depth into the actual piece that I'm trying to create. And I'm going to be using this brush from the new water markers that we have, or water painters. They come in a set of 3. There's a fine brush, a medium brush, and then this flat brush. Now for this technique, you will need a flat brush. So it doesn't have to be these particular ones, but it does need to be a flat brush. So I'm going to hold my circle in place and I'm going to pick up some ink. Now this is a completely dry brush, there's no water on it whatsoever, so you need to make sure it's nice and dry. And then virtually from the centre I'm going to be flicking outwards. Now it doesn't look like much at this stage, and probably on camera you might not even be able to see the colour, but I'm just doing it very gradually. It's better to build the colour up than it is to go in sort of straight away. And notice that I'm starting from way on my circle, almost to the middle, because I want the vast majority of the ink to come off onto this circle. I don't want it to be on my actual finished piece. So I'm just flicking outwards in an outward direction until I can see I've got enough colour. Now, if I move that circle, you can now see how that colour is starting to develop on there. So I think that's enough bumblebee. I'm now going to go in with pumpkin pie, and this time I don't need to wash my brush or anything because it's tonal colours. I'll wash it afterwards when we've finished everything we need to do. So this time I'm going to pick up some pumpkin pie. I'm going to start slightly nearer the edge, and I want to flick it out, but I don't want to go the full length like I did before. So I'm concentrating more on the edges than I am on the actual sun ray, so to speak. And I'm just building that up again. Let's say this is a very light motion. You don't want to really be putting any pressure as such onto your card. You want to be really gentle and just almost stroking it on the edges. And once you've been round once, the best thing to do is to go back and have a look. So in a second, once I've been all the way round, I will remove my circle and just have a look to see if there's anywhere else I want to go. Now, can you see that's a little bit short there? So I'm just going to pop my circle back on, and I'm just going to extend those brush lines. Can you see? So it's sort of blending it a little bit more. I'm going to add a little bit more up the top here as well. Okay, so I'm quite happy that that's all down now, so that's fine. As I say, I will now wash this brush out just with plain water and it will be absolutely fine. So if I pop that to one side, so that's our actual base of our card. Now we want to create these leaves. We'll do this stamping part in a while. I'm going to show you how to do these leaves now. So I'm going to take the rest of the piece of very vanilla scrap that I had here, and I'm going to be using some of our re-inkers. Now you can use a combination of colours, whatever colours you want to use. I am using pumpkin pie, cherry cobbler, granny apple green, and a little bit of sauce suede. I don't want a great deal of sauce suede because that will make all the colours just a little bit too muddy. I'm taking a normal cotton wool ball, but you could use any kind of cotton wool you have. You want something quite soft. You could even use, for example, a dried out baby wipe, because that would have the same absorbency. I wouldn't recommend using something like kitchen towel because you'll get a completely different effect really. So what I want to do is I'm going to take my re-inkers and I'm going to add a blob, literally, of each colour. So it's a reasonable blob. I mean, I don't want too much. I just want it to soak into that surface and give me sort of a ½ centimetre blob really. So that's cherry cobbler, pumpkin pie, granny apple green, and then I'm just going to add, as I say, a small amount of the brown. I don't want too much of that. Okay, so now once I've done that, I'm going to take some alcohol. So this is our, if you watched my card the other day, and I used this alcohol here, it's otherwise known as rubbing alcohol for medicinal purposes, but it's really good for us in the crafting world. So I've just got a little stopper here, and I'm just going to drop some of this onto. Now, I don't want to make it too wet, but I need a reasonable amount, okay? So when you start off with this, you'll find that it's quite watery, okay? So you just need to blot it off a few times, and then you'll suddenly start seeing all the colours coming through. Now obviously this will vary each time you do it, so you'll never get it the same again. You're just going to literally blot it over your surface. So you can go back over, don't go over too many times, because when colours mix together, obviously they do become sort of muddy colours. So you just need to blot it over, fill in little gaps. It doesn't matter if you've got some white gaps, because that will help add to the sort of texture of the actual cards and leaves that we want it to be. Okay, so now I've done that, I can now throw that away. Now, if you use the baby wipe technique, you end up with quite a mess on your hands. Really, it's fine, but you know, this is just so quick and easy that I think it's a really sort of quick and easy technique to use. Okay, so I'll pop those out of the way, and I'm going to bring in my punches. So this dries almost instantly because it's alcohol based. It will just evaporate. Okay, so then I can pop my punch in, and I can move it around to sort of the colours that I like. So in normal crafting, we would be trying to sort of get every little piece out of our bit of card, but you're permitted in this occasion just to move it around a little bit to sort of get the effect that you're looking for. Now I can't recall exactly how many I used before. It doesn't really matter. I mean, yours might be different to mine anyway, but I think I've done about 8 of those, I think. So if I take some scissors and just remove these excess pieces. And of course, if you have any left over, you can just use them on another card. So put those to one side, and then I'm going to go in with the what looks like a acorn type leaf. I think I've got 6 of those so far. So I'm just going to leave those to one side. I'll keep my piece there in case we need it, but I think that will be more than sufficient. Okay, so now we're going to stamp our little branches here. Those eagle-eyed between you may realise that my circle looks slightly different. Unfortunately, I had a little spillage mid-filming, so I've had to quickly redo this. So it does look slightly different, but as I say, each one will look slightly different, so that's why. Okay, so we're going to be using this stamp here, but we want this small piece from this section. We don't want this big one here. So I'm going to be using Early Espresso stamping marker. Now if you haven't got this, you can still use an ink pad, but you would just need to mask that part of the stamp away. So I'm going to be using this little one here, and I'm just going to add some ink, and then I'm going to stamp it sort of around my circle. So I think I used about 3 of these, and you do need to re-ink it each time. So I'm just roughly sort of positioning it. You can go in and add some more. You're not limited to 3. You know, you just pop them where you think, because remember the leaves are going over the top of this. So again, quickly on that one. So a lot of this will be hidden anyway, so don't worry about these sort of open ends that don't seem to be sort of doing anything. This is you know, we're going to cover most of them. Let's do another little one. I want it to go sort of in towards the centre, but I also want it to go on the outside. So I'm going to add a 4th one to this one, and I just want to add a little bit just off like that. There we go. So that's our little twigs done. Now, if you find, like here, I can see I've just caught the very edge of the stamp there. Again, don't worry, because we're going to be covering that with our leaves. So we need to position our leaves where we want to put them. So I started with one either end, and then I sort of built it up around it, if you like. So, but I wanted to give my leaves a little bit of shape, but without actually having to use dimensionals to raise them off the page. So I literally used my thumb just to roll the sort of tips of the actual leaves themselves so that they kind of sit up a little bit rather than being flat like this. So again, I'm just sort of using my fingers and thumb just to curl them slightly and to give them a bit of shape. Okay, so what I did was I started off literally with one either end, and all I did was added a small bit of glue just on to the end piece. So I didn't glue it all over, I'm just adding a small bit onto that end piece there. Okay, so I'm just going to position that one down, other end, position it again, making sure that I cover where I put that little mark, so it's just covering everything. I then believe that I came down the edges, so a little bit on the bottom, and I'm going to start sort of bringing it in to the edges, but bringing round into a shape. We can always add more leaves if we want to, and the very nature of them, because they're all different, it doesn't matter if you know, they don't sit right immediately. We can always add a few more and tuck them underneath each other, etc. So I'm literally just building this up. So again, just give them a little curl. And I'm starting off with all of these, which are sort of maple leaves or maybe sycamore leaves. And you can see in this one, I've actually covered more of the area, whereas in the original, it's sort of, there's a lot more of the natural colour underneath. So it's, again, it's entirely up to you, and you can decide sort of which one you prefer. You can add as much or as little as you want to. Okay, and I've got one more of these maple sycamore. Curl it again, and then I'm just going to pop that one sort of there, so it's sort of creating my shape that I'm looking for. I'm then going to fill in little gaps with my acorny leaves. So again, I've just curled them slightly, and I'm just going to pop them down. I try not to think about it too much, because I think if you think about it, then you start getting quite uniform. So I try, although it is very difficult and not very natural, to sort of just lay them down where it takes me, really. So again, and this time I think I'm just going to tuck this one just underneath there. There we go. And then I'm just going to stick one more on top. Okay, so all of those leaves are now in place. I don't think I need that last one that I punched, so they're all done. So now what I want to do is to actually put my little bow on that I did here. Now for this I've just used linen thread, and I've actually done a triple bow. So what I tend to do is to cut myself 3 lengths. So I know roughly how long I need it to create my bow, and I'm going to cut myself 3 lengths of that. Roughly, it doesn't have to be exact. And then once I've done that, I'm just going to trim or cut through the loops at the ends just to give me 3 pieces. Okay, I then do bunny ears. So I grab each piece between my thumb and first finger, and I create a loop on each one. I then pass one loop over the other, and it pops up the middle like that. then I can just pull it and adjust it where I want it. Now the beauty of doing a bow like this is you don't get a big knot like you would if you did it with a natural knot. You literally just get a sort of a flattish sort of piece. So I'm just going to put the ends together, trim them off, and then I'm just going to grab a glue dot. Now I find glue dots are the best for this, but before I do that I just want to pull apart those loops. That's it. So it just gives me that nice full sort of bow. And I'm going to pick up a glue dot on the bottom. And then stick it in place. So there we go. So that's our little design done. I quite like the darker colours actually. I think they look quite nice. The next thing I need to do is to stamp my greeting. Now the reason I leave the greeting till last is because I can see then exactly where I'm going to pop that. So here is my greeting. Now I haven't left myself as much space this time, so I'm going to sort of pop it in that little gap there, I think. Okay, but equally you could pop it down here if you wanted to, or you could choose one of the other greetings if it fits a little bit better. In fact, maybe I might do that actually. So I'm going to choose that. Life is better with you. That's quite a nice one. My gap isn't quite as big this time. I think that will just sit nicely. Okay, I'm just going to move that little one up in the air a little bit, and I'm going to take my early espresso ink pad. Okay, so just make sure it's all nicely inked. I don't want to have any mishaps. So I'm just going to move that leaf just slightly out of the way there. There we go. I'm going to stamp my greeting. I can pop my leaf back now because it's just sort of in that area. But that looks quite sweet. Life is better with you. So then finally we need to add some little gems. Now these are the gilded gems. These formed part of the ornate suite, so they don't actually belong to this particular set, but I thought they worked really particularly well with it. And I'm just going to pick up 2 or 3 little gems and pop them strategically around wherever I want them to be. I think I might just go for 3 this time. There we go. So that's those added. So now it just takes for me to do the matting and layering. So as I say, we're going straight on to a piece of early espresso. I'll just pop that onto there. Line it up nicely. Now with the original one I actually raised this so that it was slightly 3D, but obviously your bow's 3D and your leaves are slightly 3D, so you might decide that you want to stick it flat. I think I will just for this one, but it's entirely up to you. You can do it either way. So there we go. So that's our completed card. Now, as I say, I changed my greeting on this particular one because obviously I hadn't left myself quite as much room. If you want to stamp your greeting first, you can do. It's entirely up to you how you want to work your own one. But it's just to give you an idea really, and to show you sort of this brushing technique and also sort of the colouring of the leaves. I definitely prefer the darker. But I do like them both. But I hope you've enjoyed that, and I will see you next week for Monday Mashup. And thanks for watching. Bye.